This is not breaking news. This is not a scandal. This is not about one person. This is about a system that quietly dominates your life, a system that shapes the world you live in, yet it operates without your consent, without your knowledge. And the worst part, it's not something you can vote away. It's not something you can protest against. It's an invisible force pulling the strings of entire nations. It has the power to force governments to cut pensions, privatize healthcare, fire teachers, and sell off national resources, all to serve the interests of foreign corporations. It's an organization that holds more power over your life than your own government. And yet, it answers to no electorate. It answers to no one. Do you want to know how this organization works? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is the most disturbing thing you will learn today. So, what's really happening here? Who's pulling the strings? It's not a government. It's not a politician. It's a system, a mechanism, a financial institution that operates in the shadows, shaping entire economies. And it's called the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. But here's the kicker. The IMF doesn't need to answer to voters. It doesn't even need to explain its actions. And yet, it has more power than most elected governments. It dictates the policies of nations. It forces countries to bend to its will no matter the cost. Think about it. You've heard about austerity, about privatization, about the so-called reforms. They all come from one place. But what if I told you that these policies aren't designed to help? They're designed to control. Stay tuned, because this is just the beginning. Let's rewind for a moment. In the past, when a country found itself in financial crisis, it could turn to international institutions for help. The IMF was supposedly created to assist temporary relief, a lifeline for economies in turmoil. But something changed. Over time, those lifelines became shackles. The IMF didn't just step in to save struggling economies. It began to reshape them entirely. Where once countries could chart their own course, now they were bound by external rules. Once, nations could decide what to privatize, what to control, and how to spend. Now, those decisions were made for them by the IMF. That slow shift, it was gradual. So gradual, in fact, that most of us never saw it coming. And that right there is what makes this so dangerous. Because when change happens slowly enough, it feels inevitable, but this inevitability is not a law of nature, it's a choice. And that choice, it's been made for us. Let me show you what happens when this system goes into full motion. In the 1,970 seconds, Jamaica, facing an economic crisis, turned to the IMF for help. They were promised a quick fix financial assistance to stabilize the economy. Instead, they were handed a prescription, cut public spending, slash healthcare budgets, and privatize state-owned assets. The result? Hospitals without medicine, schools without teachers, a nation left to deteriorate. But here's the real kicker. While Jamaica's social fabric crumbled, it was still paying its debts. More money was flowing out of Jamaica than it was spending on education and healthcare combined. This isn't a solution. This is a transfer of wealth away from the people into the hands of foreign creditors. And it doesn't stop there. Stick with me. You're about to see how this same story has played out across the globe. So, how does the IMF really operate? What's the true mechanism behind these so-called solutions? The IMF doesn't just lend money, it imposes conditions. And those conditions, they aren't about helping economies recover. They're about maintaining control. Let's break it down. First, they demand austerity, cut salaries, fire public workers, reduce social programs. The public suffers, but foreign creditors, they're paid in full. Next, they insist on privatization. Sell off state-owned companies, resources, everything goes to multinational corporations. At bargain prices, in the middle of a crisis, and then they open up the markets. No capital controls, no regulations. Let foreign corporations take over and let money flow out of the country unchecked. Who benefits? Not the people, the corporations, the banks, the wealthy nations. And who absorbs the damage? The citizens, the workers, the ones who are left holding the bag. It doesn't stop there. The IMF doesn't just impose these conditions once and walk away. No, it keeps coming back again and again. Look at Argentina. In the 1,990 seconds, they followed IMF advice to the letter: mass privatization, deregulation, and an open market. They were hailed as a model country. But then in 2001, everything collapsed. The currency crashed. Banks shut down. Poverty exploded. Millions of middle-class Argentinians were suddenly thrust into poverty, all because the IMF's reforms didn't just fail, they destroyed the economy. And what happened to the people who caused the crisis? They were safe. The foreign creditors paid in full. This is not an isolated case. It's the pattern, and it's happening again right now. Now, let's talk about you, because this isn't just some far-off issue. This is about your life, too. Imagine waking up one day to find that everything you've worked for, the safety of your family, your job, your future, is slipping away, and no one's telling you why. The IMF's policies don't just impact distant countries, they create waves that reach across the globe. They create inflation, they push up the cost of living, they send prices soaring on everything you need: food, medicine, energy. And while you're struggling to make ends meet, foreign corporations are thriving. Because that's what the IMF is designed to do: empower the rich, impoverish the poor, all while keeping you in the dark. Think about it. This system doesn't just impact the countries, it impacts you. And you deserve to know the truth. But it doesn't end with your country. The IMF's reach stretches far beyond borders. What happens in one country doesn't stay there. It ripples out, impacting global markets, triggering economic instability everywhere. It's a global system, and when one piece breaks, the rest of the world feels it. Just look at Greece. In the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, Greece was plunged into austerity by the IMF and the European Union. Pensions were slashed by 40%, public sector wages by 30%, and healthcare was gutted. The result? Greece's economy contracted by 25%, youth unemployment soared to over 50%, and thousands of lives were lost because of cuts to healthcare. Yet the foreign banks that lent to Greece were reimbursed in full. It's the same pattern. And it's not just Greece, it's the entire global system, crashing down on the weakest nations, while the wealth of the world continues to flow into the hands of the powerful. This is no longer just a local issue. It's a global catastrophe in the making. Now, let's talk about the future. This system is not static. It's accelerating, deepening. And right now, we're at a crossroads. There are three potential futures ahead of us. First, adjustment. A few countries could attempt to reform the system, renegotiate their debts, and take back control. But that's a dangerous path, filled with resistance from the very powers that benefit from the IMF's dominance. Second, erosion. The current system could gradually erode as more and more countries slip further into debt, unable to break free from the IMF's grip. This is the path of continued stagnation, a global economic paralysis, as debt and austerity push nations into a perpetual state of crisis. Third, rupture. What if the system completely breaks down? What if nations start to reject the IMF altogether, stop paying their debts, and forge new alliances? This could lead to economic collapse on a massive scale, but also to the birth of a new order, free from the IMF's suffocating grip. Which path will we take? That's the unknown. But one thing is clear. The IMF's stranglehold cannot last forever. We've reached the end of this chapter, but the story doesn't end here. The IMF is not some distant institution. It's not an abstract force. It's real, it's powerful, and it's shaping the future of every nation on this planet, including yours. This is not a problem to be ignored. It's a danger that's quietly expanding while most of us remain unaware. The IMF's grip on the global economy is not just a financial issue. It's a matter of power, of control, and of sovereignty. The question is simple. Will we allow this system to continue? Will we let the IMF control our future, or will we fight back? And if we fight back, how? The answers lie ahead. But only if you choose to seek them out, because this is just the beginning. Stay tuned, stay informed. And most importantly, don't look away.